What would you say if one simple answer during a traffic stop made 6 of your biggest rights disappear before you even knew you had them? That happens way more than you think. And once you talk, consent, or keep guessing, the damage can already be done. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could save you from a search, a charge, or a huge mistake under pressure. And like this video so you can find it again fast when your heart is pounding and you need the exact words. Here's what you're about to learn. The 6 rights that people think protect them automatically, but really don't. Your right to stay silent, your right to refuse a car search, your right to refuse a phone search, your right to stop answering phishing questions, your right to leave when the stop is over, and your right to demand a lawyer the right way. Most people have no idea those rights often work only if you say them out loud and say them clearly. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. The driver talks too much, agrees to just a quick look, and then acts shocked when the stop turns into cuffs, a tow truck, or a criminal case. Here's the reality. Police are allowed to ask. You are allowed to protect yourself. If you don't know the exact words, stress will make you say the wrong thing. A traffic stop feels small. That's why it's so dangerous. You think it's just a ticket? The officer already knows it can become something much bigger. Most drivers try to sound nice. They explain where they were, what they drank, who the car belongs to, why they're nervous, and why there's a bag in the back seat. They think talking shows innocence. A lot of the time, it does the opposite. It gives the officer more details, more time, and more reasons to keep digging. Here's the reality. The stop starts with one mission. Maybe speed, maybe a light out, maybe a lane change. But if you hand over consent or start filling the silence with random facts, you can turn a simple stop into an investigation. This isn't about being rude. This isn't about picking a fight. This is about staying calm, staying lawful, and not volunteering the rope that gets wrapped around your own case. The first right that dies fast is your right to stay silent, and right beside it is your right to stop giving away extra information. If an officer starts asking where you're coming from, where you're going, whether you've had anything to drink, who owns the car, or why you seem nervous, you need one clean line. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent. Word for word. Memorize that line. Then hand over what you legally have to provide, like your license, registration, and insurance if your state requires it, and stop there. Let me show you exactly why that works. Silence by itself is not always enough. Courts have said you often need to clearly say you're using that right. If you just stare, mumble, or half answer, you create a mess. In Berghuis versus Thompkins, the Supreme Court basically said a person has to clearly invoke the right to remain silent. In Salinas versus Texas, the court said, staying quiet without clearly claiming the fifth can still hurt you in some situations. In plain English, your silence protects you best when you say you're using it bad way. Most drivers say, I'm just coming from my friend's house. I only had one beer and I'm nervous because cops make me nervous. Then their own words become the reason the stop gets deeper. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, I'm invoking my right to remain silent. Then the officer has a much harder time turning small talk into evidence. This is 100% legal. You are not required to help build a case against yourself. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it creates a clean record. It shows you were not resisting. It shows you were not lying. It shows you were protecting yourself the lawful way. And no, this does not mean you refuse basic lawful orders. If the officer tells you to step out, you usually have to step out. That part comes from Pennsylvania versus Mims. But stepping out is not the same as telling your life story. You can comply with commands and still say nothing useful. That is the sweet spot. Calm hands, calm voice, short answers, no free information. A lot of people think innocent people should just explain everything. That sounds good until stress hits. Then you guess times wrong. You forget where you stopped. You mix up names. You say, I think, too many times. Now your harmless trip sounds shady. That is why silence is so powerful. It protects the guilty, yes, but it also protects the innocent from pressure, confusion, and bad wording. If you only remember one line from this video, remember that one. Still watching? Good. Drop a comment and tell me if you think you could actually stay this calm in real life. And hit like if this already changed the way you think about traffic stops. The second right people throw away is the right to refuse a search. And this includes your car, your bags, and very often your phone too. The officer walks up relaxed. The voice gets friendly. You don't mind if I take a quick look, right? That sounds small. It's not small. It is the trap. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Say it calmly, say it once. If they ask about your phone, say this. I do not consent to a search of my phone and I will not unlock it. Those exact words. Short, clear, done. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. If you say yes, you can wipe out one of your best legal defenses in seconds. In Schneckloth v. Bustamonte, the Supreme Court said a consent search can be valid even if police never told you that you could refuse. Read that again in plain English. They do not have to warn you that you can say no. That means your protection lives or dies in your mouth. If you don't say no, the law may treat that as you giving the green light. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sure, I've got nothing to hide." Then the officer searches every pocket, bag, and corner that your consent allows. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Then, if a search happens anyway, their lawyer can challenge it later. This is 100% legal, and it matters even if the officer searches anyway. A lot of people say, "What's the point if they're going to search?" The point is huge. Consent changes the whole case. No consent keeps your rights alive for court. Consent can kill them. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. Former police officers have confirmed this works because officers know a clear refusal closes one easy door. Watch what happens when people get cute instead of clear. They say, "Why do you need to search?" Or, "I guess if you really want to." That is weak. That is mushy. That can sound like permission. Your sentence must be simple. "I do not consent to any searches." Then stop talking. Do not physically block anything. Do not grab. Do not argue. Just repeat the line if needed. And let's talk about your phone for a second, because your phone is your whole life. Photos, messages, bank apps, search history, private notes. Your phone can expose more than your car ever could. If they ask you to unlock it, do not start debating the law on the roadside. Do not try to sound smart. Just give the line. "I do not consent to a search of my phone, and I will not unlock it." Clean, respectful, protected. If they have legal grounds and a warrant, that becomes a different fight. But you never make it easier for them with your own mouth. The third right that expires fast is your right to end the stop when the mission is done. This one is massive. Listen closely because this is critical. A traffic stop is supposed to deal with the traffic issue. That's it. License, registration, insurance, ticket or warning. Then you go. But many stops stretch into side questions, dog delays, and hang tight for me moments that have nothing to do with the reason you were pulled over. That is when you need this line. You look at the officer and say this: "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Those exact words. Memorize them. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because it forces the moment to become clear. Either the stop is still lawful and active or it should be ending. In Rodriguez v. United States, the Supreme Court said police cannot drag out a traffic stop longer than needed for the traffic mission unless they have separate reasonable suspicion. In plain English, they don't get extra time just because they feel like fishing. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Yeah, no problem, I can wait," while the officer keeps them there for more questions, a dog, or another unit. Then the stop grows bigger by the minute. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Then the officer has to either end the stop or make a clear legal choice to keep detaining them. Let me show you exactly how to use this without messing it up. You do not say it in the first 10 seconds while the officer still has your documents and is writing the ticket. You say it when the traffic business looks done or when the conversation starts drifting into unrelated stuff. Maybe the warning is printed. Maybe the officer hands your papers back but keeps chatting. Maybe you hear, "Before you go, do you mind if I ask a few questions?" That is your moment. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? And if the officer says you are free to leave, leave calmly. Do not stay to prove you're nice. Do not keep talking. Do not laugh and relax and suddenly answer 3 more questions. Just go. If the officer says you're being detained, then you stop trying to persuade and go back to your other lines. Silence, no consent, no extra help. Watch what happens when drivers understand this. The whole stop changes. The officer can't float in that gray zone where you feel stuck, but nothing is official. That gray zone is where people volunteer the most and protect themselves the least. That is why this question is so powerful. It turns confusion into a clear record. 90% of drivers don't know what's coming next. If you're still here, you're already ahead of almost everyone on the road. If you made it this far, prove it by hitting that like button and drop a comment saying, "I'm still here." The fourth big move is the one people mess up after the stop turns serious. Your right to a lawyer does not help much if you ask for one the weak way. If you get arrested or if questioning becomes serious enough that you know this is no longer a simple ticket, you need to be direct. Here's exactly what you say. "I want a lawyer. I'm not answering questions without a lawyer." Word for word. Not maybe. Not probably. Not should I. Say it straight. This matters because vague words can fail you. In Davis v. United States, the Supreme Court said that saying something soft like, "Maybe I should talk to a lawyer," was not clear enough. That means your right is strongest when your request is unmistakable. In plain English, you cannot hint. You have to ask. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Do you think I need a lawyer?" Then questioning keeps going because that sounds like uncertainty, not a real request. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I want a lawyer. I'm not answering questions without a lawyer." Then the pressure shifts, and the record is much cleaner. This is not magic. It does not make handcuffs disappear. It does not end every search, but it stops you from digging the hole deeper with your own voice. And once you ask clearly, keep your mouth shut. Do not ask, what if I explain? Do not bargain. Do not try one last story. You already used the right line. Stay with it. This also protects you if they circle back to your phone. If you're under arrest and they start pushing for a passcode or just let us clear this up, your move stays the same. I want a lawyer. I do not consent to a search of my phone. Short beats clever every single time. So now count them. You learned 6 rights. People lose fast if they don't assert them. Your right to stay silent. Your right to stop answering phishing questions. Your right to refuse a car search. Your right to refuse a phone search. Your right to leave when the stop is over. And your right to ask for a lawyer the clear way. That is the full shield. And none of this came from internet myths. This comes from real court decisions. Berghuis and Salinas teach the same hard lesson in different ways. If you want silence to protect you, say you are invoking it. Schneckloth teaches another brutal truth. Consent given under pressure can still count, so you must clearly refuse. Rodriguez says a traffic stop cannot be stretched just to go fishing once the traffic work is done, unless police have a real extra reason. Davis says a week maybe is not enough when you want a lawyer. In simple words, the law gives you tools, but it does not always swing them for you. You have to use them. That is why these exact sentences matter so much. They are simple enough to remember, but strong enough to create a clean legal record later. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. That is why calm words beat emotional speeches every time. Now, let's make this real. You're driving home at night. Lights flash behind you. You pull over. The officer says you rolled a stop sign. Then comes the usual small talk. Where are you headed? Have you had anything to drink? Why are you so nervous? The wrong way starts right there. You say, I'm coming from my cousin's place. I had 1 drink hours ago. I'm just tired, and the car is my friend's. Now the officer hears alcohol, borrowed car, nerves, and a story that can be picked apart. Then comes the next trap. You mind if I take a quick look in the car? You say, sure, go ahead. I've got nothing to hide. You wait because you think you have to. The stop gets longer, you get more scared, you keep talking, everything gets worse. Now watch what happens the right way. Same stop, same lights, same officer. You hand over your documents. When the phishing questions start, you calmly say, Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent. If the officer asks to search, you say, I do not consent to any searches. If the officer asks about your phone, you say, I do not consent to a search of my phone and I will not unlock it. Once the ticket business seems done and the officer keeps drifting into extra questions, you ask, am I being detained or am I free to leave? If you are free, you leave. If you are detained and things get serious, you say, I want a lawyer. I'm not answering questions without a lawyer. That version is calm, it is clean, it is lawful. It gives away almost nothing. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it removes the easy openings officers often rely on. And if the stop later gets reviewed, your record sounds controlled, not chaotic. Next week, I'm dropping the video on what to say when police claim they smell weed, because that one turns simple stops into full searches every single day. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that script may be the most important one in this whole series. So here's the quick recap. First, silence is strongest when you clearly say you're invoking it. Second, consent is the switch that can kill your search protections, so never hand it over casually. Third, when the traffic mission is done, ask if you are being detained or free to leave. Fourth, if things turn serious, ask for a lawyer clearly, not halfway. Let me show you exactly what makes all of this powerful. It is not attitude. It is not volume. It is clear, calm words used at the right time. Hit subscribe so you catch that weed smell video next week. Smash like if this script just gave you words you may need one day. And drop a comment telling me which line hooked you most or which one you're memorizing first. Stay safe out there.